Okay, so this graph shows bullying rates within the states. You see the purple states means that the bullying rates was because of gender expectations that many people couldn't live up to. That purple also means that they were bullied to the point of near suicide or suicide. Why this is important? Negative expectations for being a man for young men leads to bullying by others who view the victim as too feminine. When I say feminine, I mean they don't play sports or any physical activity like most of them. However, I'm not really saying being a female is bad. In fact, I probably like next slide. Next slide. So in my research, I found an article called "Being a Man: A Social Construct." It was basically about how women were being a larger part of the workforce and how men had trouble doing that. So I looked into this, and I found out, like I said, as the years go on, more and more women were becoming a larger influence in the workforce. And I asked a lot of people why they think this is, and they say because as the older generation was raised to believe that men were the dominant money makers of the household. Next slide. Wait.
And when they were about 5 and 6, 4 and 5, Jade could come to me. It didn't matter, come to me crying, It didn't matter what she was crying about. She can get on my knees, she can snap my sleeve up, just cry it out. Daddy got you, that's all that's important. Now Kendall, on the other hand, like I said, he's only 15 months older than her, he come to me crying. It's like as soon as I would hear him crying, a clock would go off. I would give the boy probably about 30 seconds, which means by the time he got to me, I was already saying things like, why are you crying? Hold your head up. Look at me. Explain to me what's wrong. Tell me what's wrong. I can't understand you while you're crying. And out of my own frustration of my role and responsibility of building him up as a man to fit into these guidelines and these structures that are defining this man box, I would find myself saying things like, just go in your room. Just go on in your room, sit down, get yourself together, and come back and talk to me when you could talk to me like a what? Like a man. And he's 5 years old.
So this is Tony Porter. This video was a TED Talk that I'm pretty sure most of y'all have seen. In this TED Talk, he's talked about how men are treated differently because of society. So in the video, in the clip y'all just watched, he talks about the difference between the way he treats his daughter and the way he treats his son. The way he treats his daughter is like he's all nurturing and cuddling when she's crying. The way he treats his son is very harsh and judgmental as to why he's crying when he's only 15 months older than him, like he said. Later in the video, he talks about an event when his older brother died. It was an event, he was living in New York at the time, and on his way home, his limo with all his family made a pit stop. As all the women in the car left, it was just him and his dad. Now, he sort of says that even though his dad didn't want to cry in front of him, he knew he wasn't going to make it back to New York. So his dad cried in front of him. And as his dad was crying in front of him, he was also praising Tony because he wasn't crying. And that really struck out to me because the dad just buried his teenage son, just like a few minutes ago, but he was too afraid to cry in front of the women. So unfortunately, the dude I interviewed, he wanted to be anonymous. But so his name, so Mr. Smith is an educator who attended University of Wisconsin. He believes that gender expectations are caused by a form of patriarchal society, which means that men were the predominant role and women were, like, unfortunately lesser than men. So my solution, I really had a hard time with this one because, like, really, what can you do? You can't really change the whole world. So I just say, like, in order to try to end this, you gotta be just confident with yourself. You gotta be like who you are. Like you see this, I am who I am. You know, I can't help who I am. So like, if you're just who you are, then you won't listen to what society says and you won't believe what they say.